right, we're
Hello,
live.
hello. How is everyone doing tonight? This is our first live in our new podcast studio. Pete, you want to explain all the gadgets we got sitting on right here?
So, we got all the podcasting equipment that we need to be able to do a multi-person podcast and do live streaming while we're recording. So, obviously, we've got a camera on. We're using a computer with OBS software on the desk here. Obviously, we have microphones. We've got headsets so we can hear each other talking and hear any other guests that we bring in. And then right here, this magic is a Rodecaster Duo. It's a podcast recorder / audio interface. Allows us to plug in multiple microphones and other sources. And then I've got over here a little switcher from Fifine that allows me to control the live feed and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So this is our initial podcast studio setup. This is sort of our first real run through, playing with all of the equipment to make it sure everything is working. And obviously we'll make some adjustments as needed down the road. But for now, we wanted to officially get started with the new podcast and new podcast studio. And
touching the mic.
It's I don't know if it's these headsets or what, but I feel like my audio keeps cutting out of what I'm hearing. So
this is our very first live, so there's going to be technical blips and glitches as we work everything out. So please bear with us as we work out the kinks of everything. Every new podcast has things it needs to run through to adjust and get adjusted for the best quality. So we wanted to jump on. We don't want this to be too long of an episode, but we want to jump on because we feel like there has been a lot of craziness happening the last 72 hours, just over 72 hours. And we wanted to share that with everybody because
it's definitely,
transparency is important.
Definitely been a wild weekend.
Yes.
Some unexpected stuff happened, and there we go. So I guess we'll start.
We'll start with Friday morning. So
that's on
a
you
lot
to
of people,
start.
Yeah, a lot of people are aware that we had gone to a friend of mine. Now, this friend of mine I have known for over a year now. I actually did meet her in One Mom's Battle, Florida, and she has been attempting to court watch my hearings for quite a while now. So when she put out the request to have court watchers for herself on Friday, and she's local enough that I can drive to the courthouse in person, I feel that in-person court watching is absolutely important, especially to us domestic violence victims, survivors. Having that in-person support is crucial when it comes to federal ADA accommodations and having advocacy. So we had left the house around 7:45 Friday morning to head out to Sanford, Florida, to the Seminole County Courthouse to court watch. And as you guys are aware, I went live right after that. You saw who I was court watching for. The live that I had posted went viral, in my opinion, within the community of family court crisis. It's the most shares any of my Facebook lives have had, most views it's ever had. So in my world, it went viral. That's big for me. But I felt like my 4-minute live was very important to get the word out about the importance of court watching for others and the importance of court watching for us as well, because then we can see the systemic issues happening in family court and how they are isolating us. And that is what we need to expose. This isolation is to keep us in silence and keep any witnesses from seeing what's happening. So that hearing was scheduled for 8:30 a.m. Around 8 a.m., Pete gets a call. Tell us about that.
We've mentioned it before. My mom is 83 years old. We had to move her into an assisted living facility about actually just over a year ago due to her dementia and just physical limitations. She's 83. She's got some medical stuff going on. But the facility called me at 8 o'clock in the morning to say, hey, something's not right with your mom this morning. She's really confused. Basically, we think she needs to go to the hospital. I said, well, okay, I'm on the other side of the county, so I can't exactly run over right now and take her myself. So I asked them to call 911 and arrange the ambulance to take her to the hospital. So then there's nothing I can do us rushing to the hospital at that exact moment wasn't going to change anything or do anything. So it always takes time to get them checked into the hospital anyways. So we let the facility and the ambulance get her to the hospital, and we continued over because we were just about there, to the Seminole County Courthouse to be able to support Crystal and try to court watch for her.
Yeah. So we get to the courthouse at 8:30. Crystal was not called in at the time she was scheduled for. And the observations I made, quite a few observations. As we were sitting there, more and more people started lining up on the benches that we were sitting at. There were 2 emotional support dogs that were there specifically for these hearings, to be supportive of the people in the hearings. And so Crystal had Pete and I court watching, as well as her other friend Lillian. And Crystal gets called in around 8:45, 8:45.
We all get up with her and try to walk in with her.
And the bailiff told us it was Crystal only. None of us were allowed, including the emotion support dogs that were standing right there specifically for her, is what it seemed like. They were totally closest to us, so it definitely seemed like they were there.
Yeah, the handlers had definitely been told that there was a hearing starting at 8:30. They were aware there was a hearing at 8:30, and they were there to be able to support whoever was in need in that 8:30 hearing.
Yeah.
And nobody was allowed into the courtroom.
No one. Crystal was absolutely alone in that courtroom. It was it's actually larger than some of the hearing rooms that I've been in at the Daytona Courthouse. So there was plenty of room for court watchers and DV advocates to sit in the back and not be front and center. And that alarmed me, because this is the exact same behavior that the Daytona Courthouse judges have been doing to me, as well as the general magistrate had been doing to me. Not allowing my court watchers in the virtual hearings, very, very selectively allowing certain people to court watch in person when Justin and I were in person. And only Justin's supporters were allowed into the courtroom. So it became very alarming to me that now I'm witnessing someone else going through this exact same isolation and seclusion that I know is not legal. I know what has been happening to me for the last 5 years is illegal. It's a violation of a plethora of my constitutional rights. So, of course, I'm there as an advocate through my nonprofit, Justice for the Serlick Children, which our mission statement is to raise awareness to what is happening in these family court hearings and how we're being isolated, how they're not allowing witnesses, etc. Because that allows them to do whatever they want because there's no witnesses. So I got up and I was trying to peer in through the glass panes to just make sure, Crystal is okay. She's not distraught, crying, whatever. I was worried about her. No one should be there alone like that.
No, and at first, we honestly, when they weren't letting us in, we thought, okay, maybe there's just some pre-hearing administrative stuff that the court has to do before, witnesses or spectators are allowed in. So, it's not like we're there banging on the door or anything like that. But, after Crystal's in there for a couple minutes and nobody opens the door to let anybody else in. Yeah. So Heather walked over to the courtroom door, which has, window panes in it. So you can see into the courtroom.
Yeah.
And as soon as she did, a sheriff's deputy came running out.
I chose to document what was happening to her because I hope and pray that others that are witnessing what's happening to me are documenting what's happening to me. Especially after what we saw happen to Richard Luthman and how all of his court watchers, including Marianne Petrie, were locked out. This is becoming alarming. This is happening to all of us. It's not just happening to women. It's also happening to men and investigative reporters at that. Dave Weigel, he's having the same thing happen to him as well. So we, as advocates of this family court crisis, are speaking up in regards to this. So to document it, I took out my phone and I wanted to get a picture specifically of Crystal to document that she was there alone, because I knew they were violating her constitutional rights and federal ADA rights. So I wanted to document for her if she needed that documentation.
And just to be clear, we were in a publicly accessible hallway of the courthouse. I did not see any signs barring, pictures or photography.
No, I looked before I even turned my phone on. There were no signs stating no recording allowed, no signs, no photography allowed, no signs saying turn your phone off, none of that. I am very careful with doing that. So as everyone is aware, I went live right after Crystal and I left that court hearing. We bolted out of there very quick because Seminole County Sheriff Deputy H. Lugo had gotten in my face, made me very uncomfortable, demanded my phone without a search warrant. I know that's illegal. He should know that's illegal. So I pled the fifth and I walked away. No drama, no real escalation of things. We quickly left with Crystal and Lilliam in the courthouse and said our goodbyes. I told Lilliam she could absolutely subpoena me as a witness in any federal cases she wants to bring forth, because she definitely has a right to.
And Crystal kind of filled us in on exactly what happened in the courtroom. And suffice it to say, I mean, it sort of echoed through, a lot of, we've heard so many similar stories at this point and things I've seen happen to Heather. And it was, almost identical. Basically, the judges just don't care. And, they use every excuse in their book to just avoid taking any responsibility or making any real positive decisions. And
definitely not looking out for the best interest of the children.
We'll leave it to Crystal if she decides to share publicly, what happened. But basically, it was the judge again just using their discretion to block courtroom observers and really just not take any responsibility to do the right thing and even look at what Crystal had brought for emotion. So
right. So fast forward, we leave the courthouse. We're in the car. We're driving
straight to the hospital.
I go on that Facebook Live. It was just shy of 4 minutes. I go on that Facebook Live, and Pete, why don't you tell them what happens next? We get to the ER. So
we got to the emergency room. We get checked in. We go find my mom. Obviously, my mom was in a pretty rough shape. Anytime, medical issues happen with elderly folks, sometimes it can really throw them for a loop. So without getting into specifics of what happened to her, what happened was a common thing that happens to elderly folks, but it is an emergency. It has to be taken care of. Very reminiscent of what happened a year ago to her. So, we're there for almost an hour. No doctors or nurses came over to talk to us yet. Eventually, one nurse came over, kind of gave us, just a couple tidbits of information, but nothing, like what they're doing or what they're waiting for or anything like that. And then was it almost 2 hours that we had been there when that case manager walks in? Yeah. So we hadn't even spoken to a doctor yet, and a case manager for the hospital walks into the bedroom, the area where my mom was, and first thing out of her mouth was, "Yeah, I'm just here to figure out what your plans are." I'm like, well,
and of course we're looking at each other like,
my plan is to speak to a freaking doctor to find out what's going on with my mom. But it was just like completely wrong bedside manner. And because we hadn't even spoken to a doctor, the nurses hadn't really given us any input, so we really had nothing to make a decision on at that point.
Yeah, we knew that her sodium was low again. And May of 2024, it was scary low. I had to advocate for her at a different ER to get her sodium up.
So just
we need to check that again.
So knowing what what it took last year when her sodium dropped, we were pretty sure she was going to have to get admitted to the hospital, because it's not, they can't just give you, a salt lick and your sodium comes back up and say, have a nice day. Like your sodium has to be brought up, over time with, saline and diet and all of that. So we were expecting them to admit her to the hospital and, treat her. And then, if there was something else causing it, to be able to identify that and just move forward. I mentioned to the case manager that, we were starting to consider transitioning her to hospice care. And there's a number of reasons for that. And hospice doesn't mean, you're guaranteed end of life. Officially, it is a method of care to alleviate pain and provide comfort, and
a higher level of care that she has been receiving up until now.
And it's basically to be able to avoid the trauma of a future ER visit, for the same thing. So we were
watching your mom curl up in a fetal position. I honestly, as someone who
it was hard to watch. It was difficult.
As someone who went through this with my grandfather, when I was 15, I took care of him from 15 to 18. He had a stroke and became paralyzed when I was 15, so he could no longer walk. And I've watched the decline of him, and knowing that he would not have wanted that. He would not have wanted to be suffering. He would not have wanted to be, constantly being cared for in that capacity. I know he would have wanted to pass. We were watching Anne curl herself up in a fetal position, crying in pain. She had no clue where she was at. She was trying to yank her IV out. She was trying to yank the EKG stickers off of her chest and her stomach. So ultimately, the nurse had to put mittens on her. So think white cotton boxing gloves to keep her from yanking at all of her medical equipment. And then she started trying to yank them off with her teeth. So it was hard to watch. So she's not in a good place.
Eventually, the ER nurses were able to give her some medicine that pretty much put her to sleep, so that they could do whatever other evaluations that they needed to do. Once she was asleep, me and Heather left the ER for a little bit. We needed to grab something to eat and come home, let our dog in. So that's what we did. We were gone for like maybe an hour and a half.
Yeah. The moment we left the hospital, Pete was getting calls from all the different hospice companies.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to say before, is the hospital caseworker, she put in because we mentioned hospice, she put in a request to all of the different hospice agencies, which I had personally had no idea how many there were. But I immediately, my phone started blowing up, and I got phone calls from 3 of them while we were at, actually more than 3. I spoke to 3, and 2 others set appointments to have nurses meet us in the ER. And then when we get back, a 3rd nurse actually met us. So there was, I think, a total of 6 hospice agencies that we talked to at the same time, trying to, find out from the doctors and nurses in the ER what was going on with my mom, and, trying to figure out what decisions we really needed to make. Then we get back, and so some of the additional craziness of the story, it's almost hard to believe, but one of the, so we come back from lunch, and my mom has woken up from the medicine that they had given her. She's trying to crawl out of the bed. She's got her legs stuck in the guardrail, like they had put the bed rails up to keep her in.
Of the side, she's leaning over the side of the guardrail with her head down like this, and I walk in and I'm like, what on earth is happening?
None of the nurses are paying attention at all to what's going on. So Heather starts calling some of the nurses over, like, we need help. We need to get her back in bed. You need to obviously give her something to calm her down again. And then, like, at the same time all of that's going on, one of the hospice nurses shows up, and we all go, they take us to a side bereavement room so we could talk in private. And while we're
sitting
talking
there with that
them.
one, another hospice nurse shows up.
Well, you got a phone call and stepped outside.
Yes, so I made a post about this. I got a phone call with great news. Great news. I was expecting the phone call. Not necessarily this soon, but I was definitely expecting the phone call. So I stepped out of the bereavement room into the hallway just to get some privacy. You know, ERs can be loud. And I'm deaf in my right ear, so I wanted to make sure that I could hear the phone call because I knew what was coming. And it was great news. Unfortunately, I cannot share that great news because of my abusers and stalkers, flying monkeys from my ex-husband that have been actively trying to destroy my life for 5 years straight now. So I can't even be open and honest and celebrate my wins in life.
Something else happened while you're on the phone.
So I'm on the phone. I'm getting the great news. And as I shit you not, as I'm getting this great news in my ear, a deceased body starts rolling past me under a blue tarp. Just rolling down with 2 security officers moving to the morgue. So that was, took me off guard, obviously, as it would probably anyone. Luckily, I'm a scientist in pre-med, so deceased bodies do not bother me in the least. I've dissected things. It doesn't bother me. So it was just a very awkward moment because I'm getting this amazing news in my ear, and then I've got a deceased body rolling past me at the same time.
And then, so like right after that, another hospice nurse shows up. So Heather starts talking to that hospice nurse out in the hallway so I could finish talking with the first hospice nurse. Or actually the second hospice nurse. I don't even know at this point.
It was the second one for you, and then the third one showed up, so I was talking in the hallway to that one.
Heather talks to that one for a little bit, and then
about 5 minutes, I got her up to speed on what was currently happening.
That hospice nurse asked if she could go back to the ER and see my mom. So Heather's like, sure. I mean, the reality at this point, Heather knows everything about my mom that I know, with all the medical stuff that's going on.
We're basically married. So Anne is essentially my mother-in-law. We are just not legally married yet because of what's happening with my children. My children have a right to meet Pete, get to know Pete before he ends up being their stepfather, as I'm sure every protective parent out there would agree. So Anne is essentially my mother-in-law. And I'm going to advocate for her.
Yeah. So Heather goes back into the ER where my mom was with this other hospice nurse, and honestly, it was just weird. We don't exactly know what happened in the ER, if somebody was just confused or they had the wrong person. But Heather,
within seconds. So remember, Pete's still in the bereavement room, down the hallway, not too far away, like maybe a two-minute walk most, went through two sets of doors. So he's still with the other nurse, the second nurse. And so I'm taking this third nurse after catching her up to speed on everything that's been going on the last year and a half with her. And she asked to see Anne just to, see her condition. I'm like, sure. So I walk her in. Within seconds of getting to that bed next to Anne, I've got a Volusia County Sheriff deputy in my face. And he's mumbling. I can't hear what he's saying. I'm super confused. I'm like, I'm sorry, are you here for me? The nurse is standing right next to me. And she's looking at me all confused. I'm looking at her all confused. I'm like, what's going on here? So I lean towards him and I'm like, I'm sorry, are you sure you're here for me? Because I'm with a hospice nurse right here. And he's like, you need to go back to the lobby now. It's time to go. I'm like, what? I immediately freak out because what happened to me earlier at the Seminole County Courthouse. So, of course, I'm freaking out. I have previous bad experience with Volusia County sheriffs because of Mary Serlick and Laura Stiles sicking them on me like they're guard dogs. And that's actually what triggered us to start this podcast, to start exposing what was happening to me with my abusers.
So Heather comes, back over to where I was just coming out of the bereavement room, and she sort of tells me what just happened in the ER. And, it's not making much sense to me at the time, but I give Heather the car keys. I say, just, go outside, wait in the car, and let me go see what happens. So I walk back to the ER. I find the hospice nurse that Heather was talking to, and I start talking to her, and I'm like, did something just happen? Like, what happened? And even the hospice nurse was like, I don't know. That was just so weird. We just walked in, and they, the officer got up in Heather's face and, freaked Heather out. And so Heather left. And
I went out to my car.
Didn't do anything to warrant it. It was just so I don't know if they had the wrong.
Bizarre.
I don't know if they had the wrong person or what.
Very,
but it was
very bizarre. It was creeping me out. I did not feel safe at that point.
So I at that point, I finished talking with the hospice nurses. The ER staff was doing a shift change, so there was a new doctor coming on. So I actually spoke with the new doctor, explained to her that my mom's condition. This was a sudden acute change. Within the last 24 hours. Because I had actually seen my mom the day before. I actually took her to a regularly scheduled doctor's appointment. And, that doctor sort of understood, okay, so this is different. This is not her normal condition. And she sort of gave us some, ideas of things they could try to be able to admit her to the hospital. I'm like, yes, go ahead and do that. Do whatever test you need, admit her so she can be treated properly.
We were not pushing her to hospice immediately.
Yeah.
That is not something that a case manager at a hospital should be pressuring Pete into deciding. Yeah. That is not something that a doctor should be, especially an emergency room doctor, should be pressuring Pete to decide. That's something he needs to come to on his own. So for the intensive purposes of this ER visit, she needed to be treated as normal. She was not transitioned to hospice yet. And that is really how it felt. Yeah. They were trying to pressure us into pushing her to hospice so they didn't even have to take care of her on Friday.
Ultimately,
that's sad.
They ordered some more tests and admitted her for observation. I left the ER, took Heather home. I had another event that I had to go to at our church. So on Friday night, I went over to our Trinity Church in Deltona. They were hosting the Momentum 360 Men's Conference. It's a statewide conference hosted by Penn Florida Ministries to help men support other men through spiritual and life guidance. We're new with Trinity Church, and this just came up. And
I don't know if we're new now. Dana introduced us back in February, so
6 months.
Yeah, we've been going for quite a while.
So, anyways, this is a big conference. It was statewide. They had people coming in from all over the state. So I was taking it as an opportunity to just get out, meet a different group of folks, talk to different people. So I went out to the conference. Also, it was sort of good to just be able to, sort of get my mind off of everything else that had happened that day. Yeah. And then while I was at the conference, I got a couple phone calls from the hospital. One was from the admitting doctor who basically said, there was just 2 abnormal tests, but he wanted to run some more tests to try to get a little bit better understanding of what caused all of this to happen. So he ordered a MRI and some other tests. And after I spoke to him, I got a phone call from a nurse who had to go through a questionnaire for the MRI. So I answered all the questions, and that was it from the hospital for the night. But I knew my mom was admitted. She had a room. She was being taken care of.
She was getting fluids, antibiotics, everything that she needed. And she was officially discharged this evening, and Pete has taken her back to the assisted living facility. Yeah, and now we're moving forward with the hospice.
When I went over to I got a phone call earlier today. I spoke with the doctor again. I also spoke with the case manager. They said she's doing much better. They're not 100% sure what actually caused this, but they're sending her home with some medicine, but she's doing much better. So I stopped at the hospital after work. I walked into her room. She was actually sitting in the chair eating the hospital dinner.
Complete different scenario from Friday morning where she was curled up in a fetal position.
Have a normal for her conversation. So she was, cognitively pretty much back to baseline. Still a bit weak, but that's understandable. You've just been stuck in a hospital bed for, the weekend, not getting much movement. So I called from the hospital knowing they were discharging her. She actually, when I got there, she was already fully dressed in her street clothes. So I knew they were discharging her. I called the assisted living facility where she lives now and let them know, hey, they were discharging her. They never called me to confirm it, but they're discharging her, and I was going to be bringing her back as long as that was okay with them. And of course, I can't speak highly enough for the assisted living facility where we have them, where we have my mom, and the owner of that facility. His name is Jay. His family has been in assisted living here, locally for more than 40 years. They're very much, all of their residents are family to them, and the past year they have made things so much easier for us. We don't have to worry about my mom. We know she's taken care of. Every time we go over there, it's clean. The patients are getting, good food. There's, things for them to do, whether it's watching TV, sitting outside.
And it's a house. It's
a
not
house,
a hospital. So they're all close together. They're all watched closely.
And truly, when something happens to one of the residents, it's like something's happening to their family. So, they've been great, to help us get through this. This afternoon, I actually spoke with the owner while I was at work. I called him to he called me to try to get an update. And so we spoke, and I actually asked him, I'm like, from your opinion, which hospice agencies, are good, because they all will tell you, they're the best thing since sliced bread, but he's the one, he sees, how they treat patients, and obviously because they run the facility, they know which agencies are easy to work with from their point of view. So he told me basically his top two, which was great because the one we had picked was one of those two. So I picked my mom up from the hospital. I was able to bring her back to the assisted living facility where she lives. Spoke with the staff there. Actually, I pulled into the driveway, and the owner was there doing some work. So he helped me get her inside, sort of filled them in on how everything was going, gave them her discharge paperwork, and brought her, got her situated in the living room there where she could watch TV, and actually her roommate was already sitting there watch TV. Her roommate's a funny character, nice old lady, but definitely, has some similar memory issues. So, so I dropped her off, and then decided to, at that point it was just it's been a long day. So it was time to come home, meet up with Heather and get some dinner. And so we did that, and then
we went to D. Werblund's celebration. Yay! Reunification. Her two granddaughters are finally home.
So that was on Saturday.
Sorry, rewinding to Saturday. Yeah. First of all, that is the first time I've gotten out of the house in months. I have been in a pretty bad slump of a depression since May. Because Florida Department of Revenue is trying to take away my driver's license on this void ab initio 3-page order that Illinois signed illegally. There are so many reasons it's void. It's not even questionable on whether or not it should be enforced. It absolutely should not be enforced. It's not even properly registered in the state of Florida. And we've covered this on so many podcast episodes now. I don't need to reiterate it, but yeah, when you get a letter in the mail from the State Department of Revenue saying we're suspending your driver's license, and that is your life, that is your freedom. My therapy is quite literally getting behind the wheel and driving on open roads and blasting music as loud as I can turn it up and just singing my heart out. And I'm not bothering anybody. Pete's not listening to my Taylor Swift. My pop songs I listen to uplift my spirits. I'm a Swiftie, proud Swiftie. I always have been. I've been following her since the very beginning. So when I'm in a slump, I blast her music, especially right now, Reputation. So the fact that the Serlicks are trying to have the Florida Department of Revenue take my driver's license on a contempt order that they absolutely know was signed illegally. I don't need to go into the details, but I've explained it, why that contempt order in November is legal. It violated my due process. You know, we all have the same story. No due process when it comes to family court. So I don't even need to remind you guys that there's just zero due process. So, yeah, I've been in a pretty bad depressive slump the last 3 to 4 months. And Saturday was absolutely everything I needed. Dana, I picked up my close friend Dana. She has been a savior to me. Thank you, Dana. Shout outs to you, Survivor Center founder. She has been there for me since I met her in October at a charity event. And she has just been phenomenal. I cannot speak highly enough of her. She is a domestic violence survivor herself. She has a nonprofit, Survivor Center. She's court watched for me in person. She's literally witnessed what the Serlicks do to me. She's witnessed the antagonization in the courtroom that they do to me with their flying monkey Laura Stiles. So she's been there through the thick of it the last almost year now. So I had offered to pick Dana up in Florida and take her to D. Warblin's event, and we had an amazing time. I posted all the photos, all the videos. It was beautiful, and it gave me a reason to
really
put on makeup, do my hair, get in a dress,
and it was really it was. I think everybody there had mixed emotions because it was amazing the support that the community put together and rallied behind these two little girls that
medicallykidnapped.com
deserve to be with their family, and knowing the backstory on what happened and what Dee and her family had to do to get the kids back. They were gone for almost 2 years. And one of them,
we're talking young girls.
Yeah, one of them, young. One of them, I think, was like 1 year old, and then the other was a newborn when they were taken. So they got them back a couple weeks ago and set up this
reunification celebration.
And it was at the restaurant that Dee owns. Mm-hmm. So they sort of had a
beachside bar and grill in Ormond Beach.
Rooftop tiki bar was set up for the private event, and there was probably 50 to 75 people at least that showed up to support the girls and the family. And so Dee arranged for some entertainment, so there it was
hula dancers,
some Hawaiian
fire
dancers. It was cool stuff there.
It was beautiful.
And
it really was. Shout out to D1. That was
very
beautiful.
Very well done, and the two little girls were there, and it was great seeing them so happy and seeing their interactions with their family. But
beautiful family.
Here's where the mixed emotions come in. There is the fact that people have to even have a reunion party for their own family that gets taken by
kidnapped
state agencies.
Florida DCF medically kidnapped these girls.
Is sickening. This should not be something that needs to be done. You shouldn't have to have reunion parties. Your children just should not be taken from you,
right?
Without massive just cause. And that's the one thing with family court. Once you start seeing any of these stories, and I mean it's just the same story over and over again. They take the kids away, claim one parent was abusive, and give them to the other parent. But there's never any almost never any criminal charges. They just take them away, give them to the other parent,
no justification.
And then they sit there, and the judges will tell you, well, there hasn't been a significant or meaningful change in circumstances, so we're not going to change anything again. And you just want to bang your head against a wall. And so many stories are, I was naive.
Do you remember how much she said she spent in attorney fees this far?
Over $100,000.
$100,000.
And they actually
that is
once they realized what was happening, and
you have to buy your children back from the state.
They call it a closed court system. So the closed court system is when you have a local circuit where it's all of the family law attorneys just work in that circuit for family law, and they're friends with all of the judges, and they're friends with all of the other attorneys, and they all get together and say, listen, I've got this.
We're going to win this case.
I've got this
lose that
great client with a ton of money. Let's stretch this out, get all the money we can. I really need to win this case, and I'll let you have this one, but you need to let me have this one.
It's haggling.
It's so obvious that this stuff sort of goes on because just from, what I have seen myself. So once they realized that sort of stuff was happening in this closed court system, and of course the lawyers don't want to piss off the judge because they're going to have another case in front of that judge and then another and another. So you don't ever want to make the judge mad. So they actually went luckily for them, they have the means. They were able to go get an attorney from out of state. I believe it was a criminal defense attorney, even though we're not talking about criminal charges. This was, a DCF case, but they were able to, get a criminal attorney from out of state who was able to come in and do what needed to be done.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about her story, medicallykidnapped.com, I believe is the website. I will post the website link in the chat when we're done with this live. But yeah, she has a website telling her story. She's also sharing a few other people's stories on that website as well. So definitely check it out. But we want to, so now that we've kind of given you an overview of Friday morning all the way to today, we feel obligated because we have both been witnessing this together. We feel obligated to let everyone know that there are snakes in our garden. There are snakes in our garden of family court crisis.
What we mean by that is, as you are involved in family court issues, you may get on social media and you may find other groups that seem like support groups or movements that seem like they have a plan of action. And unfortunately, we've seen this a couple times now with different groups and different people. That you start to recognize patterns, and a lot of the patterns are these people. They might have a group, or a action plan, but every time they have a conference call, it's, oh, by the way, here's my book, here's a link to buy it, here's a link for my services, which it's not completely wrong for people if they have a service that can benefit people in family court system.
But don't take advantage of us.
But when it gets to a point where you're no longer really focused on the mission, you're focused on trying to find
promote
clients,
yourself, make money off of the victims.
So
that's wrong.
Without naming names, because we've actually seen this happened multiple times with different people. And it's not just, sometimes it's the people leading the groups. Right. Other times it's an individual that says, I've got this service, I can help you out. There was one person purporting to be a paralegal that we had come across.
I hired him, and he actually was a recommendation from someone I trusted, and I hired him. I signed a contract with him. And only because he came already recommended, I did not do my due diligence. Guys, do your due diligence on these people. Right. I did not do my due diligence and reach out to get references to make sure this person was legit. And he stole $500 from me. $500 the beginning of this year. He stole from me. He was supposed to be a paralegal that was going to help me draft my federal complaints. And he did nothing of the sort, nothing even close to it, and just absconded with my $500 cash.
The documents that we got were so, poorly prepared. Like he literally couldn't even get our names straight.
Yeah,
with this us person typing them in a message to him, like, put this name here.
This person is circulating in this family court crisis group. Someone else in a previous live said that they used him, and I'm like, that's who I was talking about. Be careful with that person.
Yeah.
So there are snakes in our garden, guys.
People out there that are just trying to get money, and then there's people. Unfortunately, there's these groups out there, movements that, they're the people running them have their story is that they've been involved in family court themselves. And they've got, you
would think they would have a level of empathy, right?
They've got an action plan or something they want to do, and it sounds great. So you want to get behind it, and then you start to sort of, help, starting to get behind it. And all of a sudden it's everything is, do this my way, buy my book, you need to use my language. You need to do things exactly my way. And then, I love your idea. Let me tell
make
everybody
it
it's my idea.
Let me make it my own.
So
first of all, guys, I'm a writer. I'm a publisher. I have published with the U.S. Geological Survey and Geological Society of America as a scientist. So I have published. As a child, I was a young author, and I've published as a young author. And when I become a PhD candidate, I will be publishing books on what I'm currently dealing with and what I'm currently witnessing is happening to others. And I will be joining other authors like Marilee McLean, Marianne Petrie, Dana for Survivor Center. She's also published. Her book is on Amazon, Savage Angel. So I will be joining all those other powerful women eventually and publishing my own books on my experiences with family court crisis. So when someone takes my ideas, my writing, and makes it their own, that is theft, that is abuse, that is taking advantage of me. And when someone takes advantage of me and then lies to other people about what happened, I'm going to call them out on their BS.
So
how did this podcast start? Why did we even start this podcast, Pete? What was I calling out on the BS and the narcissism?
Well, I mean, ultimately, you did your first live,
Why? What was that first live? What happened?
The sheriff's department showed up to take you to jail for not paying child support, even though you were still in the middle of fighting it in court. So
yeah, it was harassment. All of it ended up dropping, and basically Pete had to pay $1,000 extortion to get the handcuffs taken off me in our driveway. So that triggered me to immediately go on a Facebook Live in the moment. It's raw, it's real, it's emotional. You can literally see me being victimized in the moment. And ever since that occurred, that is episode number 1 of my podcast, ever since that occurred, I have gone live weekly to continue to expose my abusers. So this podcast was quite literally created to expose my abusers, my stalkers in real life, and put everything that I am experiencing under a microscope, just like Dave Weigel's movement, just like he's doing, exposing the narcissists, exposing the users, exposing the fakes. So if you want to know what I'm talking about, it's on my Facebook feed. You can see what I'm talking about. But guys, be careful out there. There are snakes in the garden looking to take advantage of us as victims. We are vulnerable. We are impressionable. And we need to look out for each other. When one of us is hurt by someone that supposedly is part of this family court crisis movement and wants to make real changes, we need to speak out when that particular person is being abusive and controlling. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
And, for my input, obviously I saw this starting, Friday when we're in the ER with the messages coming in. I saw and heard Heather multiple times telling this one person, I'm busy. I'm at the ER. We're dealing with an emergency right now. Please just stop messaging me. For the love of God, stop messaging me.
It was pretty much since I did that Facebook Live Friday after leaving the Seminole County courthouse. She was nonstop messaging me all day Friday.
This one person kept messaging, and it got to the point where Heather actually removed herself from this person's group and blocked the person through Facebook, which was their means of communication.
On Saturday at exactly 12:35 p.m. Those screenshots are there for the whole world to see. Screenshots don't lie.
So
that's literally how it went down.
So that's, it's been a crazy last few days. But positive stuff, some other positive stuff that happened. I just want to point out, because we're getting near the end here, so I do want to plug our other podcast. So right now you're watching we're doing a Facebook Live while we're recording this. This is the Justice for the Serlick Children podcast. This is really the podcast where Heather tells her story and what happened with her family and her children. Heather has another podcast that we are, now that we're set up with the studio equipment, Heather will be recording interviews with folks for the Disrupt the Corrupt podcast, which is going to focus on family court corruption and victims of family court issues and domestic violence. Basically, it's going to be a platform for people to be able to tell their stories and get them out into the public. And then I'm going to be hosting the Support is Not Silent podcast. And what is that about, Heather?
So that is because you are my partner. You have been by my side since pretty much April 2023. So you have witnessed everything that's been happening to me here in Florida, everything that my ex-husband's family and their flying monkey, Laura Stiles, have been doing to not only me, but you as well. Stalking you, harassing you, emailing you, messaging you, using aliases to message you. It is insane. So he's going through it. He's living the hell that I'm living. And the partners of the court victims are kind of off in the shadows, and they absolutely should not be, because they are going through it. So Support Isn't Silent is for the partners. It's for the family members, the brothers, the sisters, the moms, the dads, the aunts, the uncles, and friends of the victims of this court crisis.
So
and they need to have a voice.
It's going to be a platform for them to tell their stories and help tell the stories of the folks that they're supporting. And the other cool thing, so, you know, Heather has gotten behind some of these other national movements. One of them is the Family Fraud Warrior Project.
Dave Weigel?
Or Family Court Fraud Warrior Project. However, what it
yes,
is.
it's a long name. Family Court Fraud Warrior Project.
That's what
Capital Project. That's
with Dave Weigel. And I actually had the opportunity to speak with Dave on the phone yesterday. You know, me and him have somewhat similar background in what our careers are, you know, similar but different. So, you know, we had a conversation, and, you know, sort of what he's doing with his movement. He had actually had an idea without knowing about, you know, the podcast I'm getting ready to set up and host. He had an idea. He wanted to try to get like a panel together of supporters. So I told him about my podcast. He sort of asked me to sort of, run with that a little bit. After we get a few episodes, recorded, we're going to, share it with him, see if that's sort of kind of what he was looking for. Otherwise, I'm still open to be part of, a panel podcast kind of thing, but he was definitely thinking podcast, as an idea. So had a great conversation with Dave on the phone yesterday. So, looking forward to support from other folks out there as I get that podcast going. We'll, right now, the podcasts, all three podcasts will be available on all major podcast platforms. We're all set up for that. The Support Isn't Silent podcast, you can actually go to Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, anything like that. Just type in the search Support Isn't Silent. You'll find the first episode. The first episode is really just me telling my story. And I'm going to be getting the next couple episodes recorded here soon.
Yeah. It was a pretty crazy, bizarre last 3 days. And I'm looking forward to the rest of this week. I'm super excited. This week is going to be a change of pace for me, and I'm very much looking forward to that. So I'm going to leave it with, we need to look out for each other as victims of this court crisis. We are all vulnerable. We are all paranoid. We are all scared. We are all hyper vigilant, and we are all hyper aware of people. And when someone is not sincere, that person needs to be called out within that circle, because we need to protect our own. And if someone is not sincere, that means they're not part of us. They're not looking to be part of the solution. They're trying to be part of the problem.
And we have a surprise guest on the podcast right now.
This is Willow. So Willow is my children's support cat.
Up on a shoulder.
Yeah, so I had gotten Willow for my children October of 2019, right after my 20-year reunion. Willow was actually named by my daughter Ariana. Willow was Ariana and Bianca's cat. Charlie and Tommy were more connected with my cat, Panther, because Panther was a male and Willow was a female. So Willow was Ariana and Bianca's emotional support cat. Then all the trauma happened in 2020.
And she became my emotional support cat.
Very much our emotional support animal. And she is always right there at our side. Yeah. She is always
we've got
making sure that we're loved.
We've got Tiger, our other cat, which is Willow's son.
Mm-hmm.
He's over there sitting
Panther's son.
Staring and watching us do this show. So.
Yeah. So with that being said, we're going to end this live. I very much appreciate everybody that's listened. We have quite a few comments. I will respond to these comments. And now that we have our podcast set up, we're still working out the kinks of how to respond to these comments because we got this software.
This is our first live with all of the equipment and the software. And there's definitely a few things I've noticed. So we'll make a couple changes moving forward. But thank you everybody for joining us tonight and listening to our story and what we had to say tonight. Please like and follow this podcast as well as the Disrupt the Corrupt podcast and the Support Isn't Silent podcast. All are available on all the major podcast platforms. And with that, we will see you next time. And
have a great night, everyone.
Here's a little bit of magic that we have with our new setup here, right? Watch.